So we had done chapter 3, verses 1 to 9. Today, we'll start with verse 10. And let's see how much we are able to cover today. So who would like to read out or recite verse 10? Saransh?
सहयज्ञा प्रजा सृष्ट्वा पुरोवाच प्रजापति अनेन प्रसविष्यत्वम् एष गोस्त्विष्टकामधुक्.
Sri Aurobindo says, with sacrifice, the Lord of creatures of old created creatures and said, by this sacrifice shall you bring forth fruits or offspring. Let this be your milker of desires. See, this is for those who are Vedavadarataha. The greatest sacrifice. What was the greatest sacrifice? The greatest sacrifice was the sacrifice of Purushottama himself, who expanded himself. He expanded himself and became other than himself. The perfect decided to become the imperfect. This was the first sacrifice by which all creatures were, the divine became all the creatures. So one of the verses in the Vedas explains this. This is from the Rig Veda, Agamarshan Mantra. Ritam cha satyam cha vidat tapasodhya jayata tato ratri jayata tato samudro arnava. Ritam cha satyam cha vidat tapasodhya jayata. See, whenever there is meditation, whenever there is concentration, what happens? There is heating. And whenever there is heating, science says there is expansion. So when the divine was all alone, when there was no creation, when he had not become this creation, when he was all by himself, at that time, he meditated on himself. And so intense was his meditation on himself. The dhyaya jayata, tapasodhya jayata. He did tapas. He did tapasya and he was doing meditation on himself. And what came out of him? What was the first thing that came out of him? Rita and Satya. The truth and the right. They came out of him. Tapasodhya jayata. And Ritam and Satyam were allowed to move far away from the divine. And because that was the divine himself, he had become other than himself. And then Tato Ratri Jayata. And then came Ratri. Ratri is when there is some darkness and there is some light. Right? Like there's the light of the moon, the light of the stars. And that Ratri became darker and darker and darker till it became as dark as the bottom of the ocean. Tato samudro arnava. Ritam cha satyam cha vidat tapsodhya jayata tato ratri jayata tato samudro arnava. So what happened? The divine, who was perfect, what was his sacrifice? His sacrifice, the first sacrifice was that he became other than himself. He was ready to sacrifice his perfection and become the imperfect. Someday, if you all tell me, we'll do there just 5 verses again from the Vedas. It is a colloquy between Indra and Agastya. So Indra is saying, Na nunam asti no shvaha kastad vedam yad adbhutam annasya chittam abhisancharenyam utadhitam vinashyati. He's talking about the divine. And he's saying he is neither now nor he is tomorrow, which means he is timeless. Who knoweth that which is supreme and wonderful? Achintya, arupa, something that can't be known. Now this is the important part. Anyasya chittam abhisancharenyam. It has motion and action in the consciousness of another. What does this mean? It means that he becomes other than himself. And when he becomes other than himself, then in that other than himself, which is us, there is motion, there is movement, there is consciousness. But when we try to approach him by our thought, he vanishes. Utadhitam vinashyati. He disappears when we try to understand him mentally. He can be experienced by our consciousness, but he cannot be understood by the thought. Okay? So I just wanted to show to you this sentence. He has motion and action in the consciousness of another. So we had discussed earlier also that the Vedas have been written in such a manner that on the one hand, they can be understood by those people who are Vedavadarata, who want to propitiate the gods, who want to call the gods to fulfill their desires. At the same time, the same verses can be used by those who want to connect to the Lord, but not through the external yajna, not through the havan, not through a physical havan, but through an internal sacrifice. And the Gita mostly talks about this internal sacrifice. And similarly, just like the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita also caters to both the audiences. Verses 10 to 15, they answer the need of the person who wishes to fulfill their desires. And there's nothing wrong. Shri Krishna says, if you have desires, propitiate the gods, invoke the gods, do the outside havan with the outer fire, with the outer agni. Now, this he does in the verses 10 to 15. And verses 17 to 20, he speaks of the other kind of people. Those whose delight, whose joy, whose absolute bliss, ananda, is in what? Is in connecting with the self, connecting with the Atman, connecting with the Lord. Such a one, says Sri Krishna, works for Loka Sangraha. He works for the sake of the world. He works for the sake of uniting the people of the world. This is verse 10. Now, somebody please recite verse 11.
देवान् भावयतानेन ते देवा भावयन्तु वः परस्परं भावयन्तः श्रेयः परमवाप्स्यथ.
Very beautiful. Lovely
Excuse me,
pronunciation.
ma'am.
Yes, Saransh.
Ma'am, before moving ahead, ma'am, I have a doubt in this
Yes,
verse,
tell me.
ma'am, the previous one. Here it's written, ma'am, which sacrifice the Lord of creatures. So, ma'am, here sacrifice, ma'am, means, ma'am, that, ma'am, tap which Almighty did to expand Himself.
The tap. But what was his sacrifice? The sacrifice was that through the tap, he expanded himself and he became other than himself. He was Satchidanand. He was living in Ananda. But his sacrifice was that he became the creatures. He became Saransh. He became Anjali. He became the creatures. He was ready to go through all the difficulties and pains, trials and tribulations of life. Right? It is not like he's sitting in the seventh heaven and he's put us to all these troubles, trials, and ordeals. He has expanded himself. He has become us. He has become the imperfect. And then in the imperfect, he said, he looked at himself in the imperfect and he said, how will this become perfect again? So then he talked to Shakti, the mother, and then the mother put all of herself, she became many, those souls, sparks, and the sparks entered. Bahusyam, Bahusyam. So there is a spark inside you. That spark, that soul, that Angushta Matram that is sitting here, that is the perfect. The perfect entered into the imperfect. So that the imperfect would call out the perfect in everything that he is doing, the imperfect is doing. And calling out the perfect and saying, lead me, go on leading me till my imperfection starts becoming perfect. Right?
Yes.
Madhbhava Magata, till our outer nature becomes his nature.
Okay.
You
And ma'am,
understood?
what is the meaning of a milker of desires?
Milker of desires. So he said that now I've called all my gods. I've become all these gods. And they can be you can milk them. You can take all your desires from them. This next verse only he talks about the gods. You know? Foster by this the gods. So you can propitiate the gods. You call to Vayu or Vayu Putra Hanuman and you say that I want to finish my studies fast. He's the god of speed. Vayu is the god of speed. So you go to Hanuman and you say, okay, I am propitiating you. I am invoking you. And now my desire is that I finish the preparations for class 10 very fast. So that speed, you ask Hanuman for it, you will get it. You go to Indra, he is the god of the knowledge, the brain. You ask him for that. You go to Agni and you say that you make my aspiration purer and purer. You go to Shakti, say you make me an instrument of thy will. You go to any one of the gods. So they are the milker of desires. You can milk them like you milk a cow and take milk out of them. That way, right? So these verses 10 to 15 are for those who who are full of desires, like we all may be having desires still. And he says, there's no problem. You offer your desires to these gods and you ask them to give you back what you want. Right? Got it, Saransh?
Thank you, ma'am.
So the 11th verse, Sri Aurobindo says the meaning is, foster by this the gods. Foster means propitiate the gods, encourage the gods for your development, call the gods, invoke them, and let the gods foster you. Bolte na foster parents. So somebody who takes care. So you take care of the gods. What do the gods want? They want that you should bhajo them, you should invoke them. उनके लिए आप धूप बत्ती जलाइए, उनके लिए फूल चढ़ाइए. But we are talking of gods with a small g. We are not talking of God with the big G. The Purushottama, we are not talking of him. He doesn't want all this, but the gods.
We are talking about some demigods.
Demigods. We are talking about all these demigods. Indra, Varuna, Bhaga. There are so many gods. All of them want propitiation. So you propitiate them, ask them for what you want. Foster by this the gods and let the gods foster you. Fostering each other, you shall attain to the supreme good. Okay? So, not much is there in the 11th verse to understand. But if there's any question, ask and then we will move to the 12th.
Ma'am.
Yes.
Here, ma'am, supreme good, ma'am, Shreya Paramavapsyatha. Ma'am, which supreme good is being talked about?
The supreme good is to be able to be in constant, continuous, unbroken connectivity with the divine's will. The supremest good is that the divine's will is flowing through us and we've become just instruments through whom he is doing his work. Whatever work he wants done, it is happening through us. And we don't begin any work. We don't end any work. We allow his work to be done through us. Divyam karma. And when that happens, then it will be Divyam Janma. Then it will be our new birth into a new consciousness. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now who will read the verse 12?
इष्टान् भोगान् हि वो देवाः दास्यन्ते यज्ञभाविताः तैर्दत्तानप्रदायैभ्यः यो भुङ्क्ते स्तेन एव सः.
Beautiful. Fostered by sacrifice, the gods shall give you the desired enjoyment. When we invoke the gods and we give to them what the gods want कि हम उनकी पूजा करें, हम उनके लिए धूप बत्ती चढ़ाएं, हम उनके लिए दिया जलाएं, फूल चढ़ाएं, हम उनको याद करें, हम उनको अपनी desires offer करें. So when we do what they want, then the gods shall give you the desired enjoyments. Who enjoys their given enjoyments and has not given to them, he is a thief, stena. So Sri Krishna, the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita that whoever does not give back to them, he is a thief. Now, let's take an example. Suppose we are studying for an examination. And before studying, we have offered everything to the divine within. That I offer to you all the preparation I'm doing, all the effort I'm putting into the preparation. Then when you're sitting for taking the examination, and then you invite the divine, you say, you write through me. I offer this entire test paper to you. Let thy will be done. You've invited him into that also. And then the result comes. And you've come out in flying colors. What you couldn't expect, उससे भी better result आया. And then you start ringing up this, that, your friend, your nani, your dadi. तब तो गलत हो गया. क्या करना चाहिए उसके पहले? Prinali, Arya?
Ma'am, we should thank God.
Yes, offer to him the enjoyment, because Ishavasya idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. Everything belongs to him. So if we have done very well, that also belongs to him. It must be offered to him. So we can't say हमने जब preparation किया था तब हमने offer किया, जब हमने exam लिया तब भी offer किया, अब result तो is come because after my offering. No, even the result belongs to him. Even then you call him back and you thank him and you say thank you so much. And what is left after offering, uchishta, jo bach gaya, that we have a right to enjoy. And what does Sri Krishna say here? That one who does not do this offering, he is a thief, stena, right? See, even in the Isha Upanishad we read in the first verse, Tena tyaktena bhunjita ma gridha kasyas vidyanam. Tena tyaktena bhunjita mane usko offer karo, uske baad bhunjita. Go to Lord Bhaga and enjoy. You are allowed to enjoy that, but only after it has been offered. See, there is a wheel. We talked about the wheel in the beginning. A chakra. It has been initiated by the divine. He offered himself. He became other than himself. The perfect chose to become the imperfect. Now, that chakra has to continue. The imperfect has to offer all the movements to the perfect. Then the perfect will give back the result to the imperfect. Then the imperfect will offer the result also back to the perfect. And then the perfect. So this chakra must go on. Those who enjoy the given enjoyments without offering, giving it back to the gods, without giving it back to the divine Purushottama, Sri Krishna says that they are stopping my wheel. I have started a wheel. It is in progress and you must not stop it. If you stop it, then what are you doing? You are doing stena. All right? Verse 13.
Yajnashishtashinas santah muchyante sarvakilvishaish Munjate te tvagham papa ye pachantyatmakarana.
The good who eat what is left from the sacrifice. The good means those who are following the good path. The good who eat what is left from the sacrifice are released from all sin. But evil are they and enjoy sin who cook for their own sake. Cook is just an example, but it's not only cook. Those who enjoy the fruit without offering, they are evil, Sri Krishna says. After offering our actions, when the result comes, these results, these fruit of our karma, must be offered. Again and again, I'm saying the same thing. Those who do so, these good persons, the Lord says, they are released from all sin. But those who do actions only for their own sake, only for the result, and who never remember the Lord, कि किसके लिए ये काम कर रहा हूं, मैं अपने लिए कर रहा हूं, अपना इकट्ठा कर रहा हूं, अपने लिए कर रहा हूं. So such people, they are bound to their actions and they are creating that guttery, जिसको बोलते हैं ना गठरी अपने कर्मों की, and they enjoy their sinful selfishness. Right? Now we'll do verses 14 and 15 together. One child, whoever wants to recite, please recite. So you recite 14 and Nandini will recite 15.
Annad bhavanti bhutani पर्जन्यादन्न संभव यज्ञात् भवति पर्जन्य यज्ञः कर्म समुद्भवः
कर्म ब्रह्मोद्भवं विद्धि ब्रह्माक्षरसमुद्भवम् तस्मात् सर्वगतं ब्रह्म नित्यं यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम्.
So Sri Aurobindo explains this. From food, creatures came into being. From rain is the birth of food. From sacrifice comes into being the rain. Sacrifice is born of work. Work know to be born of Brahman. Brahman is born of the immutable Akshara. Therefore is the all-pervading Brahman established in the sacrifice. So what Sri Krishna is doing here, the Lord, he is revealing to Arjuna the process by which all creatures are born in this universe. So instead of going backward, let's go forward. Maybe it will be easier to understand. Let us start from the origin and proceed downwards. In the beginning, who was there? In the beginning was the unchanging, immutable Lord, right? And the unchanging, immutable Akshara, from there Brahman was born. Brahman is one who can become, because the unchanging is unchanging. Although he is Brahman, but Brahman is born out of him. From Brahman, work or activity is born. From there, from work, because without work there can be no sacrifice. From work, sacrifice or offering is born. And from sacrifice, when we do sacrifice, then rain is born. By the rain, food comes. And from after food, the creatures come. Now, for me to explain this is a little tough because even I don't really know if I can explain this any further. I should have read this a little more, but this is the way they have given the whole process by which the divine, the Akshara, became all the Kshara. So, any questions? Otherwise, we will move on and we can do verses.
Ma'am, what's the meaning of immutable?
Immutable is that which cannot be mutated. You heard the word mutate? That which can't be changed.
Yes.
Immutable is that which cannot mutate, but he can expand. He can become other than himself. He can expand, right?
Before
Yes,
we
please.
move, it's not connected here, but it starts from the view thing of the perfect, that is a Purushottam, becoming the imperfect, completely opposite of themselves,
Yeah,
Now, at one level, as you mentioned, it's an ultimate sacrifice that he had
yes,
to do. But at the same time, we also know that it was a play. It was his Leela that he decided to, go
yeah,
through.
yeah.
And the other aspect is, why did he need to become imperfect? Couldn't he have become his perfect versions in the multitudes?
Yeah, so this is his Leela. If he had become totally perfect, then he didn't need to become, because he was perfect up there. He was already perfect. He wanted to see all that he had within himself. He could become the imperfect. He could become so much. And he wanted to enjoy that play. It was a Leela for him. And he wanted to enjoy himself. And so he became all that he had the potentiality to become. And he became all that. He became the vegetation, he became the animal world, the insect world, the ocean world. So much, so many. If all of them were perfect, there wouldn't be so many, there wouldn't be a variation. Each one of them has a different kind of imperfection. The fish can't walk on land. We human beings can't live underwater forever. So we all have certain imperfections, which all have to mutate till we become perfect again. So this was a whole game of evolution. And he was in no rush. It took thousands of centuries for him to become the clod, for him to become that rock. That first he became the inconscient, where there wasn't even the rock. Then for the inconscient to turn into the rock, into the inanimate, thousands of centuries. From there, thousands of centuries for that to turn into vegetation. He wanted to see and love himself, see the different variations that were within himself, all that was hidden himself, all his potential that he wanted to see. He wanted to enjoy himself. If he didn't do that also, he was very happy. He was very happy. He was in Ananda whether he did it or he didn't do it. But if he had become perfect only, then there would have been hardly any play. The play is for the imperfect to make that effort. The effort, when after a lot of effort, when you've written a paper, Gita, and then when you've actually given that paper out, you've explained it to people, the joy that you get. With the effort, when the evolution takes place, the joy is 100 times, 1,000 times, or 1,000,000 times more than if you were given a prepared paper by someone. Right? So it is this joy that he wanted us to feel. The joy of that effort, that grazing, that big amount of that leap that you take, and then the joy. Like when a student studies and studies and studies very hard and comes up with fantastic marks, the joy is phenomenal. And what about the child who just cheated and got the marks? There is no fulfillment. He wanted us to experience that fulfillment of effort, right?
Basically, the whole joy is to see us moving and
Yes.
evolving. So that's what his
Progressing.
purpose.
Progressing, evolving. The whole secret is evolution. That is why that once famous sentence of Sri Aurobindo, man is a transitional being. He is not final. We are just transitional beings. And those who are living consciously and making an effort to grow, we are actually collaborating with Shakti. We are making an effort in everything, our responses, our thoughts, our emotions, and that gives us joy. For instance, suppose we react in 1 minute to somebody's saying something, and then we take a decision, हम नहीं react करेंगे, and then we pray to the divine, we work on our being, we figure it out in our little head. That's so what if somebody speaks like that? I am not spoken like that. Why am I feeling bad? Everybody has a right to be what they want to be. I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to react rather. And then when we are able to reach that stage where we do not react, the joy is immeasurable, right? That's evolution. Yes, Saransh.
Ma'am, is the immutable Lord, ma'am, formless? Ma'am, is he Nirakar?
Yes. But he said that I will give myself an akar so that it is easier for people to have bhakti for me.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so he gave himself that akar so that we could love that Lord. No?
Yes, ma'am, it's discussed in the 12th chapter, ma'am. Starting. Yes, ma'am.
है ना? Because आकार तो तभी होगा ना जब हमने बोला ये आकार है. That means इस आकार के बाहर वो नहीं है, इस आकार के अंदर वो है, इसका मतलब इस आकार के बाहर वो नहीं है, इसका मतलब there has to be space. But the immutable जब थे, there was no time and there was no space.
Yes.
First he had to become time and space, then he could have a form. Then we could have a form, right?
Yes.
Do you want to recite the 16th verse?
एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयति हय अघायुरिन्द्रिया रामः मोघं पार्थ स जीवति.
So Sri Aurobindo says, he who follows not here, the wheel does set in movement. Evil is his being. Sensual is his delight. In vain, O Parth, that man lives. Mogham Partha Sajivati. The Lord has initiated a universal law of exchange. It's a universal law. He gives, we give, he gives, we give. And his greatest sacrifice is his becoming other than himself. The perfect sacrificing his perfection and choosing to become the imperfect. Now, this wheel of self-giving, the Lord has set in motion. And we, the imperfect, have to keep this wheel in motion by offering back to God all our mental, vital, and physical actions. And God will keep the wheel or chakra in motion by offering us the fruit of our action. And before we enjoy the fruit, we offer it back. The Lord says here that the one who does not keep this wheel of self-offering moving, such a person is evil, and he lives only to satisfy his senses, only to satisfy his indriyas. The life of such a person has only been wasted. Just see how clearly the Lord is saying that such a person who doesn't keep this wheel of offering back and receiving and offering back, his life has been wasted, for he has made no progress. There will be no movement of his outer being towards a conscious transformation, towards perfection. This is the one and only method he has given for progress. Now we'll read this footnote. It's a little long and it's important. In the Gita, there is very little that is merely local or temporal. Local or temporal means something that इसी देश इसी काल में काम आ सकता है. Can't be used in USA, can't be used in Australia. It is very few things in the Gita would be something that is very local or temporal. And its spirit is so large, it is so profound and universal that even this little can easily be universalized. Right? For instance, when he says Chaturvarnya Maya Srishtam, now he is saying कि मैंने इस सृष्टि को में चातुर्वर्ण्य मैंने इंट्रोड्यूस किया है. अब now can we say that this is local? Can we say कि खाली इंडिया में होते हैं ये चार वर्ण? No. He said very clearly that guna karma vibhagacha, sir. It is by your gunas and by your karmas that you are either a brahmana, if your interest is in knowledge, acquiring knowledge. You are a kshatriya, if your interest is in fighting for the right. You are a vaishya, if you are interested in interchange, harmonizing. That is your interest, and you are a vaishya. And if your interest is in serving, in helping people, then you are a shudra. So this is not local or temporal. Everything that seems local or temporal actually is very large. It is profound. Every point can be used universally. That even this little which looks temporal can easily be universalized without the sense of the teaching suffering any diminution or violation. It can all be universalized without suffering any violation. Rather, by giving an ampler scope to it, then belong to the country and epoch. Country and epoch means, country means space, epoch means time. It cannot be contained in any one space or time. कब गीता वांची गई थी? आज तक the Gita is answering our questions. The teaching gains in depth, truth, and power. Should I go ahead? Everybody's understood so much? Often indeed, the Gita itself suggests the wider scope that can in this way be given to an idea in itself local or limited. Thus, it dwells on the ancient Indian system and idea of sacrifice as an interchange between gods and men. So, now this would look local or temporal, right? कि हवन होता है, gods को हम देते हैं, वो सब समिधा डालते हैं हवन कुंड में. ये लोकल लगता है ना? ये सब अमेरिका में तो कोई हवन नहीं करता, यूरोप में तो कोई हवन नहीं करता है. So it looks like it is very local or temporal. A system in an idea which have long been practically obsolete in India itself and are no longer real to the general human mind. But we find here a sense so entirely subtle, figurative, and symbolic given to the word sacrifice. And the conception of the gods is so little local or mythological, so entirely cosmic and philosophical that we can easily accept both as expressive of a practical fact of psychology. Let me stop here for a moment. So this idea of sacrifice, what was given in verses 10 to 15, it looked like it was temporal, it was can be done here, but later on, the same thing is expanded when we'll go further in verses 17, 18, 19. We'll realize that that sacrifice can be expanded to something that is much more subtler, which the sacrifice can be done from my mind, can be done from my emotional being, can be done from my physical being. I can sacrifice this glass of green tea to the divine and say, मैं आपको पी रही हूँ. I sacrifice this to you. I drink this for you. Let it do in me what you wanted to do in me. So this is a sacrifice. This is a samhita. So the same thing which is local or temporal can expand and become universalized. And this law of exchange, this universal law of exchange, is there in all systems. All systems, whether we look at psychology talks about it. Psychology also has a law of exchange. And in that psychology, if you study psychology, they say that a mother is one whose love is more selfless. Generally, anybody, when you talk of love in psychology, we people who love, they want love back in return. But a mother's love is the most selfless, most unconditional, without any expectations, without any calculations. So even in psychology, there is this, they've talked about in psychology, this law of exchange. Then when we talk of the general law of nature, the general law of nature, it is the same thing, that the trees give us, we give back to the trees. And when we stop giving back, then there is a problem. And that is what has happened in our world. We have stopped giving back to nature what nature has given to us. We have not given back to them in the same amount, in the same manner. And that is why the world is suffering from a very, very big crisis, right? So reading this paragraph further, but we find here a sense so entirely subtly figurative and symbolic given to the word sacrifice, and the conception of the gods is so little local or mythological. Now, talking of the gods. Now, when you look at the Vedas, when you understand the Vedas, someday we will do some passages from the Secret of the Vedas written by Sri Aurobindo. So beautifully he has explained the gods. He said each one of these gods is a personality of the divine. Like I just spoke to you, Vayu is a god of speed. Now there is a personality of the divine where he is speed. Now if you want to connect to that personality, our rishis have been able to find that personality in the word Vayu. There is a personality of the divine that he is vast. So the rishis were able to find the right name, Varuna. So when we call out to Varuna, when we invoke Varuna and say, I want to become vast and vast and vaster and vaster. I don't want to be Sankeen and narrow. I am Anjali and everything should be here for Anjali. No, Anjali is way beyond this body. So when I start experiencing that wideness, or when I start aspiring to experience that wideness, then I call out to Varuna. I call out to wideness. We can call out to knowledge, Saraswati. We can call out to any one of these personalities. So what seems like conception of gods is so little local or mythological, so entirely cosmic and philosophical, that we can easily accept both as expressive of a practical fact of psychology and general law of nature, and so apply them to the modern conceptions of interchange between life and life, and of ethical sacrifice. Now, who can do ethical sacrifice? Can an elephant do ethical sacrifice? No, ethical sacrifice only man does. Like a human being can say, I am ready to lay down my life for the sake of my country. That's an ethical sacrifice. I can do this, I can give up all my wealth for the sake of this cause that I'm taking up. That's an ethical sacrifice. And self-giving as to widen and deepen these and cast over them a more spiritual aspect and the light of a profounder and more far-reaching truth. Sri Aurobindo spoke about a beautiful incident. Once he was in Baroda for some time, and in Baroda he visited an ashram of Swami Brahmanandji. Now, like in ashrams they do, so Swami Brahmanandji would also have a bhandara. You know what is a bhandara, no? Where you serve food. Anybody who wants to come comes, and food is served for one day or one meal or 2 days. Now, one time Sri Aurobindo was there, and he said that in between the bhandara, they started realizing that they're falling short of ghee. Ghee kam pad raha hai. So the sadhaks went up to Swami Brahmanandji and said, "Ab hum kya kare? Hum loग का तो ghee kam pad raha hai." And people have come from even the closer towns. So Swami Brahmanandji said, "Don't worry. You just get the canisters of empty cans of canisters of ghee. Fill them with the waters from Narmada river." Because this ashram was on the banks of Narmada. Narmada river, like Ganges, is supposed to be a very, very realized river. So he said, "You just get me as much ghee as you want, get me that many canisters of water from Narmada, and you just put it in my room." Sri Aurobindo says, I don't know what Swamiji did. In the morning when the sadhaks came and opened those cans, they were full of ghee. And he said that that ghee was used for all the bhandara. Now, this is not the important part. The important part comes after this. After the bhandara was over, Swamiji told his sadhaks, he said, as many cans of Narmada river that you got into my room, that many cans of ghee must be given back to the Narmada. They must be offered back to Narmada ji, because that is the whole law of exchange. What we take, we give. What we take, we give. That is such an important thing to do. We take from the trees. We take fruits from the trees. We take shade from the trees. We take so much from the trees. But if we have to cut trees, then what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to plant that many or more trees somewhere else and take permission from them. Do the requisite puja on them. Ask forgiveness from them if we have to cut it for the sake of development, if it is absolutely necessary. But only after taking permission, only after begging forgiveness, only after planting more trees than you are going to cut, then you can do that. We are taking from the rivers, we are taking from Mother Earth, and what are we giving back? We are throwing plastic all over the place. We are killing the life in water. We are killing the productivity of the soil. Are we giving back to the earth? No. So this is what is said, that this law of exchange must be done in the spiritual sense. Having thus stated the necessity of sacrifice, Krishna proceeds to state the superiority of the spiritual man to works. You've understood how important the law of exchange is, right? Isn't the story of, and Sri Aurobindo ki aankhon dekha hai Swami Brahmanand ji ke ashram mein, how, remember that in the Bible they say that there was water was kept in front of Jesus and he looked at it and it turned into wine. So there's one poet, I'm not so good at it, I don't remember the poet, who says that the water looked at the Lord and blushed. So the water turned into, see, the poetry is so beautiful, thrills you. The water, I don't have the exact words, but it's something like this, that the water looked at its Lord and blushed. So it turned into wine. So should we move ahead to the 17th verse? Mrityunjay, why don't you read out the 17th verse?
यस्त्वात्मरतिरेव स्यात् आत्मतृप्तश्च मानवः आत्मन्येव च सन्तुष्टः तस्य कार्यं न विद्यते.
But the man whose delight is in the self and who is satisfied with the enjoyment of the self. And in the self, he is content. For him, there exists no work that needs to be done. Now, this is a very important verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Here, the Lord speaks of the person who is completely absorbed in the self. He is absorbed in the self within him, such that it becomes his preoccupation. That is from where Ananda or delight is flowing through him. He's Atmarati, he's lost, he's completely absorbed in the soul. In this verse, 3 levels of absorption in the self are described, and they are Santosh, which leads to Tripti, and which may finally lead to Rati. Let's understand Santosh first. In Santosh, Atmanyeva cha Santushta, there is an internal dialogue within oneself which says, I must be satisfied with what God has given to me. Even when there is a yearning for fulfilling some desire, one offers it to God and becomes santushta or satisfied thereby with one's circumstances. There is an effort involved in santosh. At the next level, there is tripti. In tripti, atma triptah cha manavah, there comes about a saturation. One feels satiated. One feels tripped with what one has, and one doesn't desire anymore. To give a very layman example, हमको गुलाब जामुन खाने, एक खाया, 2 खाया, 3 खाया, इतने खाए कि हम तृप्त हो गए. There is a satiation. Then there is no more needed, nothing more needed. One feels tripped or satiated. When one is tripped or satiated in the self, in the soul, there is no need for anything else, for any circumstances from outside which can fulfill. For such a person is satiated, tripped with the self, with the Atman, with the delight of the self within. Now, the third stage is Rati. Rati is the highest level of absorption in the self. And one is absorbed in the delight of the soul. In the state of Atmarati, one has transcended all needs as a means to provide satisfaction. In this state, one doesn't even feel the need to meditate. Because meditate तो थोड़ी देर के लिए हम उस पे करते हैं. यहाँ तो गोपियों की तरह हो गए. हमारी रति उसी में है. हम चाय पी रहे हैं तो उसके लिए पी रहे हैं. गोपियां क्या करती थी? वो सवेरे उठती थी तो कृष्ण के नाम से उठती थी. कपड़े पहनती तो कृष्ण को जपते जपते कपड़े पहनती थी. दूध बिलोती थी, मक्खन बिलोती थी तो कृष्ण 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 के लिए बिलोती थी. गाय चराने जाते थे वो तो बाहर खड़ी होके देखती थी. एक एक सेकंड उनका कृष्ण में, देवर आत्मरति उनकी कृष्ण में थी. That is the state of Atmarati. When every moment of the waking time is absorbed in the self within. While work is flowing through our outer being, Ananda is flowing from the inner being. I'll give you a story of Sri Aurobindo. Once Sri Aurobindo was working on his desk and a terrible cyclone came to Pondicherry. Now the mother was in her room and she rushed to the room of Sri Aurobindo. I must shut the doors and the windows, otherwise the wind and hurricane will come into and the rain will lash in and it will disturb his work. When she came to his room, she was surprised to find that his peace was so solid and had filled the room so much that even the cyclone could not enter into his room. The open doors were open, the open windows were open, but not a drop of the cyclonic rain was coming in. Not a little bit of the wind was coming in, as if his peace had reached outside and had blocked it. This is Atmarati. You know, there was this writer, Paul Brenton, who used to go to meet Sri Ramana Maharishi. And Paul Brenton wrote that after meeting Ramana Maharishi, He says, I could see two mountains there. One was the Arunachal mountain behind him, and the other was the mountain of the consciousness of Sri Ramana Maharishi. His consciousness was so solid that it could be palpably felt. His presence could be palpably felt. Paul went and wrote further that the delight from Sri Ramana Maharishi would ooze out of him and penetrate the person sitting in front, sitting in his close proximity. Those who were little conscious could actually experience the delight penetrating their being coming out from Sri Ramana Maharishi. So, for such a person as is described in verse 17, who is drenched, who is absorbed in the delight of the self within, the Lord says, no obligatory work needs to be done. For such a person, karyam na vidyate. There is a difference between karyam and karma. Karyam is obligatory work and karma means action. See, one more story I'll tell you. All have heard of Narsi Mehta here. किसने किसने नरसी मेहता के बारे में सुना है? कोई ने सुना है नरसी मेहता की कहानी? नहीं सुना है? कृणाली सुनाइए हमको कहानी. आप सुनाएंगी?
Yes, ma'am.
बताओ.
Ma'am, I saw his movie, ma'am. I think, ma'am, 1 year back. Maybe if I miss out some points. कि जब वो रोटी बना रहे थे, तो एक कुत्ता आया और उनकी रोटी उठा के ले गया. तो वो उनके पीछे दौड़े. इसलिए नहीं कि मेरी रोटी वापस कर दो, ये बोलते हुए कि अरे प्रभु रुकिए, मैं घी तो लगा दूं. और फिर उसी कुत्ते में से फिर स्वयं भगवान ने उनको दर्शन दिए थे.
Should I tell you the story that I had thought
Yes,
of?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So he was in a state of Atmarati. He was completely absorbed in the self, in the soul, in the delight of his soul. Now his daughter came to remind him. So the daughter's child was getting married. I think in Narsi Mehta की कहानी है, वो किसी और की तो I could be mistaken. So भात भरते हैं हम लोग में, right? भात भरते माने the mother, जिस child की शादी है, उसकी mother के parents, वो they come and give a lot of gifts. तो नरसी मेहता को उनकी daughter आई रिमाइंड करने कि अब मेरा भात भरना है आपको, मेरे बेटी की शादी है. तो नरसी मेहता को लगा कि मैं कैसे भात भरूंगा, मेरे को तो कुछ मालूम ही नहीं है. आई एम सो लॉस्ट इन कृष्णा, आई कांट डू एनीथिंग, आई डोंट नो हाउ टू ऑर्गेनाइज अ भात. सो ही जस्ट प्रेड टू कृष्णा. ही सेड, देखो मैं तुम्हें इतना खो गया हूँ, मुझे नहीं मालूम ये भात क्या होता है. जस्ट टेक केयर प्लीज. एंड गेस व्हाट, द लॉर्ड कृष्णा वेंट इन द गाइस ऑफ Narsi Mehta. Didn't go for his granddaughter's wedding. But Lord Krishna went as Narsi Mehta, and with so much saman, and he fulfilled all the obligations as a father of the mother and as a grandfather of the child who was getting married. So we must remember that Atmarati is a very, very high state, a state where there is no deviation, there is no fluctuation. It is a complete absorption in the self within, and a continuous experience of the delight of the self. Right? One must not imagine ever or pretend to be in that state. जब किसी को कर्म नहीं करना होता है, तो वो अपने आप को भुलावे में डाल देता है कि मैं अब ऐसे स्टेट में आ गया हूँ, अब मेरे से कोई कर्म नहीं होते, मैं बस उनमें खो गया हूँ. बट ये इसी को कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट करने के लिए इसके आगे श्री कृष्ण के वर्सेस 18 और 19 है. I don't know if we have the time today, whether we should do a break or we should complete verses 18 and 19 now. Because this is not really what Sri Krishna is saying कि बस यही है. इसके आगे उन्होंने कुछ कहा है verses 18 and 19 में. Yes, Sarita, you have something to say?
हाँ, Anjali,
Yeah.
you told us another story of Narsi Mehta.
बताओ.
So once the king, he got to know about Narsi Mehta. So he says, you show me proof लोग सब कहते हैं that you are, you know, very big bhakt of God, and I want to see proof. He says, I have no proof. What proof can I show you? So he says, ki, no, you show me proof, otherwise I'm going to put you in the jail.
हाँ हाँ
जो भी करो करो, but I have no proof to give you.
हाँ
So he puts him into the jail, and then he's sitting in the jail, and then Sham causes time for him to sing the bhajans for Krishna.
हाँ
So when he starts singing the bhajans, and
हाँ.
he's singing, so the Raja ने एक heavy हार पहनी हुई है, पता नहीं कुछ
हाँ.
माला पहनी है, वो माला वहां राजा के से उड़ करके comes into Narsi Mehta's. Then the king realizes कि what a. So then, I mean, that was one of the stories that you had told us.
Yeah. I remember now this story.
Story, ma'am, which you told about Narsim Mehta, ma'am, there was something, ma'am, to add upon. Ma'am,
बताओ.
I have also heard, ma'am, like that कि उसमें क्या होता है कि उनकी ही बेटी की जहाँ तक वो शादी होती है और
हाँ.
वो जो उनके इन-लॉज होते हैं जो
हाँ.
तो वो कुछ एक लिस्ट में देते हैं पूरा सब
हाँ.
लिख कर ये
हाँ,
सब
हाँ.
चीजें आपको भेजनी है
हाँ
और
हाँ
उसमें सबसे ऊपर लिखा होता है भगवान श्री कृष्ण का नाम। पहले ये रिवाज होता था ना कि सबसे पहले भगवान का नाम पेज के ऊपर लिखते हैं।
हाँ
अब
हाँ
तो वही था तो वो सबसे ऊपर लिखा तो जैसे ही उनके पास वो लेटर आया तो उन्होंने पढ़ा और सबसे ऊपर भगवान का जब नाम देखा तो कहा जिसका नाम है वही करेगा आगे का।
हाँ. और वही किया और उसी
यस
ने
मैम,
किया.
यस मैम, श्री कृष्ण वेंट इन मैम हिज
Beautiful. And these stories are not stories; they are real. They have happened in our इस भारत भूमि में हुई है ये कहानियां.
Here it's written तस्य कार्यम न विद्यते. You told ma'am that there is a difference between action and obligatory works.
हाँ.
Ma'am, what's the difference?
Karyam is generally used, generally I'm saying, not as a rule. Karyam is obligations उसके कोई नहीं बचते हैं कि obligatory work is father है तो उसका obligation है भाई बच्चों को पालना पोसना बड़ा करना. बट अगर वो इसमें आ गया है, it's a very Vedantic view. This is not the view of the Bhagavad Gita. This is a very Vedantic view. कि जब हम इतनी आत्मरति में आ गए हैं तो हमको कोई ऑब्लिगेटरी काम बचा नहीं है, फिर हम भज गोविंदम कर सकते हैं. The first 10 to 15th was what? The Vedic view. कि भाई कोई desire है, propitiate the gods, get your desire, हवन करो, get your desire, हवन करो. So first 10 to 15th was the Vedic view. 17 and 18th were 17th was the Vedantic view.
Ma'am, since it is in Bhagavad Gita and ma'am, God is saying so, ma'am, I think ma'am it should be correct only.
Now, God always puts forward the many views and then he gives his view. It is done by some people. उसमें से एक वर्स निकाल करके they will prove कि ज्ञान योग सबसे बड़ा है. कहीं उन्होंने बोला उस लाइन को पकड़ लिया और फिर उसी को आप करके ज्ञान योग सबसे जरूरी है, कर्म करना छोड़ दो. But you have to take the whole view. If you take partial, then it is falsehood, right?
Yes.
अब 18th verse कौन सुनाएगा? सारांश आप सुना.
नैव तस्य कृतेनार्थ न कृतेनेह कश्चन न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चिदर्थव्यपाश्रय.
He has no object. Shri Krishna is still explaining आगे. He's saying जो आत्मरति में एकदम तृप्त है, लिप्त है, lost है, जो ईश्वर में lost है, he has no object here to be gained by action done and none to be gained by action undone. He has no dependence on these existences for any object to be gained. ठीक है ना? अब 18th में वो क्या कह रहे हैं कि जो आत्मरति में है उसके पास कोई there is no gain that he has anymore. Who's living in the state of complete absorption in the divine consciousness, he no longer has any gains left to be achieved by doing action, and neither he will gain anything. Now this is the flip side we have to understand. He says neither will he have anything to gain by becoming actionless, by becoming a sannyasi. सन्यासी बनने से भी उसको कोई गेन नहीं है. Why? Because he does not depend on outer things or circumstances. He has nothing to gain from the outer things. See, verses 10 to 15, as I just told you, they speak of the ideal of the Vedas as was misunderstood by the people who were Vedavadarata, right? Who only took one-sided view of the Vedas, that we have to propitiate gods for getting our अपने इच्छा पूर्ति के लिए हमें हवन करने हैं. And this is what Sri Krishna also spoke in a very derogatory manner in chapter 2, and he called them Vedavadarata. Verse 16 says that those who do not keep the wheel of offering, they circulating and in motion, they are like thieves and they live their life in vain. Now, verse 17 speaks of the Vedantic view. Ki once you're living in the state of Atmarati, complete absorption, then you have nothing. These people have nothing to gain out of action and nothing to gain out of inaction. अगर हम यहीं रुक जाते हैं तो हम गलत करते हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि हमने पूरा ठीक से समझा ही नहीं है. Verse 19 will synthesize both the Vedic view, the Vedantic view into a grand synthesis of the Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord will tell us that the secret is not in inaction. After you have reached truth, even then, by becoming inactive, you are not doing the right thing. The secret is to do desireless actions, both before reaching the truth and also after reaching the truth. I've explained the footnote. Now we will read the footnote, and I hope it will be understood. Here are the two ideals: Vedist 10 to 15 and Vedantist the 17, standing as if in all their sharp original separation and opposition. On the one side, which is the Vedic side, the active ideal of acquiring enjoyments here and the highest good beyond by sacrifice and the mutual dependence of the human being and the divine powers. This is the Vedic. What is it? That I want to acquire enjoyments here and I also want my highest good beyond. So what will I do? I will do sacrifice, I will do havan, and I will depend on the gods and gods will give to me. On the other hand, what was there in the 17th verse? On the other, facing it, the austerer ideal of the liberated man who, independent in the spirit, क्योंकि वो आत्मरति में है, has nothing to do with enjoyment or works or the human or the divine worlds. But what does he exist for? He exists only in the peace of the Supreme Self, joys only in the calm joy of the Brahman. But this, we don't have to stop here. The next verses create a ground for the reconciliation between the two extremes. The secret is not in action. As soon as one turns towards the higher truth, the secret is not in action, but desireless actions. Both before, because then we want to reach the truth, and after reaching the truth, even more so, because then we tell the divine, you get your work done. Use me as your instrument and get your work done on earth. Right? The next verses create a ground for the reconciliation between the two extremes. The secret is not in action. As soon as one turns towards the higher truth, the secret is desireless action, both before reaching the truth and after it is reached. The liberated man has nothing to gain by action, but nothing also to gain by inaction. And it is not at all for any personal object that he has to make his choice.
Now I have a doubt that, ma'am, if a person who has reached self-delight or self-contentment, so ma'am, at that stage, ma'am, if he is, ma'am, he's not purposely, but if he forgets to do actions, then ma'am, will it be wrong? If he's in that peace and or in that state and he's not purposely leaving them, if he forgets in that,
Then it is okay, he's forgotten. But purposely leaving his action,
yes, ma'am, that's so obviously,
that is absolutely wrong.
yes,
Here, as I told you, अब हम भज गोविंदम करेंगे, हम खाली नाम लेंगे. नहीं, अगर आप उस स्टेट में आ गए हैं, तो become a channel of the divine's will. Because the purpose of life is that.
Yes, ma'am. Because हम श्री कृष्ण ऐसे हैं, तुम्हारी कर्म ना करने में भी आसक्ति नहीं होनी चाहिए कर्म.
हाँ, exactly. है ना? And एक बात और बोले, जो ईश्वर करते हैं और जो गुरु करते हैं उनको कॉपी नहीं किया जाता है. हम बोले कि जो कृष्ण ने किया हम भी करेंगे. पहले कृष्ण बनो, पहले अपनी छोटी उंगली पे गोवर्धन उठा के दिखाओ, पहले पूतना का वध करो, पहले वो सब करो जो कृष्ण कर सके, तब कृष्ण को फॉलो करो. जो गुरु बन गए, जो बहुत बड़े बड़े गुरु है, उनको कॉपी नहीं किया जाता है. भगवान को कॉपी नहीं किया जाता. उन्होंने जो कहा है हमें करने को, वो हमें करना चाहिए. We must not copy the guru and the God. We must do what they have told us to do. ठीक है? Now we'll just do the 19th verse and then we'll finish. But this is the right place to stop after the 19th verse.
तस्मादसक्तः सततं कार्यं कर्म समाचर असक्तो ह्याचरन् कर्म परमाप्नोति पुरुषः.
Therefore, without attachment, perform ever the work that is to be done for the sake of the world, loka sangraha, as is made clear immediately afterward. For by doing work without attachment, man attains to the highest. Right? So he's saying कि ना तुम खाली ईश्वर से अपने डिजायर्स पूर्ति के लिए कर्म करो, ना तुम अकर्म हो जाओ कि मेरे को कुछ कर्म नहीं करना है, मैं आत्मरति में मग्न हूं. You do works without attachment, without desires, for the unification of people, loka sangraha, for uniting the world together. And by doing such works without attachment, man attains to the highest. Right? So it is clarified again and again by the Lord that desireless works done as an offering or as a sacrifice will lead us to the highest realization or highest good. Sri Aurobindo further clarifies, आगे footnote में, that there are three kinds of works. First are the works that are done with full selfishness, egoistic, selfish works, which only miss the true law of karma. What is the law of karma? The law of karma is to keep the cycle of offering going on, the cycle of exchange going on. But those who are doing works only for themselves to satisfy their desire, their ego, such selfish and egoistic acts, they miss the true aim of life. What is the true aim of life? The true aim of life is to become the perfect instrument of the divine action, so that the divyam karma passes through us, the divine acts pass through us. But selfish and egoistic acts they miss the true utility of life. And the true utility of life is, according to the Gita, loka sangraha. Now there is another kind of work, the second kind of works. Those that are done with desire. Pehla wala kya tha? Totally selfish. Second type of work is those that are done with desire, but the desire has been offered to the Lord. Because I am saying कि भाई मेरे अंदर ये desire है, I am offering it to you, and I would like to receive the fruit, whatever you want to give to me. But fruits and actions have been offered to the Lord. Therefore, such actions have been sanctified. They've become purified. How have they become purified? Because they have been offered to the Lord. Now, the third kind of work, Sri Aurobindo says, are those that are done without any desire, without any attachment. They are done solely as an offering to the Lord. To the Lord ki, just use me for your work. The way the gopis used to do all their work. In remembrance of Sri Krishna, उनको कुछ नहीं चाहिए था. उनको बस श्री कृष्ण, हर समय श्री कृष्ण चाहिए थे. नींद में उठते, नहाते, खाना बनाते, बाल बनाते, कपड़ा पहनते, हर समय उनको खाली श्री कृष्ण चाहिए थे. उन्हीं की याद में रहती थी. जैसे गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब में बार बार बात होती है अबाउट सिमरन, सिमरन, सिमरन. It's the same thing. Remember, remember, remember all the time. And it is the third kind of work that leads the soul of man to the highest realization.
Ma'am, can you, ma'am, re-explain the three kinds of works, ma'am, in points, ma'am?
The first one is done without any sacrifice. It's all given in the footnote. The first kind of work is that which is done without any sacrifice. It is done selfishly for fulfilling one's desires, and there is no offering to God, no remembrance of God. I am doing this because मैं अपने लिए जीता हूँ, मेरे को अपने
Ma'am,
लिए
it's
चाहिए.
the worst.
The worst.
Yes.
The second kind of work is the work जिसमें I recognize मेरे अंदर desire है, पर वो desire मैं ईश्वर आपको offer करती हूँ. And whatever is thy gift to me as a fruit, I will take it. So the desire has been sanctified, has been purified, right? And the third kind of work is that work which is done only for the divine. Usme there is no attachment, there is no desire. It is कि मैं तेरे लिए कर रही हूँ, मैं तेरे लिए कर रही हूँ. I don't want anything. I'm doing it only for you, right? So this is given in the footnote. It's a short footnote. It is true that works and sacrifice are a means of arriving at the highest good. See, उन्होंने clearly कह दिया है कि वैदिक तरीका सही नहीं है, वेदांतिक तरीका सही नहीं है. क्या सही है? That you have to do works, but works without attachment and offered to him. So here Sri Aurobindo is saying, it is true that works and sacrifice are a means of arriving at the highest good. But there are three kinds of work. First, that done without sacrifice, for personal enjoyment, which is entirely selfish and egoistic, and misses the true law and aim and utility of life. True law kya hai? The law of the universal law of exchange. So when I'm doing things selfishly, I'm missing that true law of exchange, right? I'm doing it for myself. The true aim. What is the aim of life? That I become that perfect channel, that instrument through which the divine's work is being done. जब हम selfish काम कर रहे हैं, attachment के साथ कर रहे हैं, तो obviously I'm not reaching that aim at all. And what is the utility of life? Shri Krishna has just said Loka Sangra, of uniting people together. जब हम अपने लिए कर रहे हैं काम, I'm not achieving that goal either. So when I'm doing selfish works and egoistic works, then I'm neither getting the true law, I'm neither following the true law, nor I'm achieving the true aim of life, nor I'm reaching the utility of life, as told by Shri Krishna. Mogham partha sajivati. Such a person is living in vain. His life is a waste because he will not progress. That done. Now, what is the second kind of work? That done with desire, but with sacrifice. The desire has been sacrificed, and the enjoyment only as a result of sacrifice, and therefore to that extent consecrated and sanctified. So because your desire has been offered, so it has become purified. Because in an offering one doesn't say yehi dena padega tumhe. In an offering one says मेरा ये aspiration, मेरा ये desire है, इस desire के लिए मैं ये काम कर रहा हूँ, let thy will be done, right? तो आपका वो जो desire है, you have sanctified it, you've purified it by offering it. And the third kind of works, and that done without desire or attachment of any kind, it is the last which brings the soul of man to the highest. Right? So it was a very good place to stop. I didn't want to stop in between because
Anjali, what would you mean by Mogham?
by
Mogham.
मोगम. ये तो
हाँ.
हमारे बच्चे आपको समझा देंगे. बताओ मोगम का मीनिंग.
Ma'am, मोघम मैम, as much as remember ma'am, it's in मोह, मतलब अज्ञानता में.
हाँ. In vain. In vain. Such people are living in vain. They are wasting their life. मोगम पार्थ सजीवती. They are
जीवती
living
मतलब वो रहता है जी, और वो
हाँ.
मोघम मतलब हाँ बिना किसी अर्थ के.
कोई हाँ बिना किसी अर्थ के. मोगम पार्थ सजीवती is wasting his life. जो मैंने ब्रेथ दी है, श्री कृष्ण कह रहे हैं वो वेस्ट कर रहा है यहाँ पे. any person who's living like this.
Beautifully explained all the three steps in so simplicity and so beautifully explained. Thank you so much.
Not at all, it's all Sri Aurobindo's कार्य. माने मैं
But
तो
it is so simplicity. मतलब इतने बढ़िया से आपने समझा दिया कि जो हम what we are missing out in life, what we are doing, हम कर तीनों चीज रहे हैं, लेकिन हम
हाँ.
शायद राइट वे में नहीं कर रहे हैं. हमारे डिजायर्स भी हैं, हमारी सैक्रिफाइस भी है, लेकिन हम शायद राइट वे में अभी तक नहीं कर रहे थे. What you have
And Shri Krishna ने कितने अच्छे से कहा कि there's nothing wrong. We
There's
must
nothing
accept कि
wrong.
हमारे अंदर desire है.
है. That is true.
But उन desires को sanctify करो ना. ईश्वर के सामने उनके चरणों में डालो ना. वो कुछ ले थोड़ी रहा है हमसे. वो थोड़ी बोल रहा है तुम्हारे desire ले लेंगे. हाँ, it will become unreal ना, because अंदर
Unreal.
desire है. उसको
हाँ.
दबा के रखे, उसको छुपा, अपने से ही छुपा के रखे.
हाँ.
तो छुपेगा थोड़ी, वो वोल्केनो बन जाएगा.
बल्कि हाँ, फिर वो गलत होता है, लेकिन
कोई
अगर
ना कोई और रास्ता चैनल ढूंढेगा.
With the G, no? So do Ganesh ji and Kartikeya ji and all of them, also Hanuman ji, all of them come in the demigods?
अब demigods मैं तो नहीं, मैंने I'll have to study that and check कि demigods बोलने की नहीं. They are gods with a small g, because each one is one individual personality of the God of पुरुषोत्तमा. पुरुषोत्तमा की इतनी पर्सनालिटी उनको कैसे समझा जाए? ये तो हमारे पुराणों ने उस ईश्वर को खोल के तार तार उनको समझ करके उनको अलग अलग इतने ये सब जगह उनको खोल के बता दिया.
But they're all with small g.
They're all with small g.
Okay, I mean that is the important part, that they are all with small g. Okay.
Yeah, and then there is the divine. There's one Lord. जिनकी सब personalities हैं. Half a minute of silence and a gratitude. Huh?